John 18 and 19. Well, it's the closing of our readings today that has the end now of the crucifixion scene, something that, again, is taking so much time in our Gospels. The reason I think it does is because, once again, in thinking of the bigger story, the idea of a dying Messiah was just so contradictory to everything that a Jew would have expected, that the fact that it happened is going to be recorded at length. I think it's just the interesting idea, or the concept so gripped the mind of the believing Jew after it was over that they just needed to tell this story in careful detail. Our third antagonist in this story is getting center stage in John 18 and 19. Of course, Pontius Pilate. He ruled from 26 to 37. Notice again how Jesus' death and resurrection is followed very shortly by the ending of these three men's reigns. He's the Roman governor of Judea, actually not a prestigious post at all. We don't know much about him outside of the Bible, and even less of his predecessors and successors. It's just not a prestigious post to be headquartered in Judea as a Roman official. Two conversations that I find interesting in this interplay between Jesus and Pilate. The first is in 1835. "What have you done?" presumably to get in front of me, the Roman government official of Judea. Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight, so that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now my kingdom is not from here." I believe what he means by not of this world or not from here is that he's not interested in leading a kingdom, being the king of a kingdom that worked like Rome did from the top down, that kept its subjects under pressure or under the knee of someone. Jesus' approach to a kingdom, as we've been reading in his teaching and such, is one of servitude, which today I think is the greatest apologetic value that a Christian can have in their own world, is simply to live out that kind of kingdom ideal, where you're not motivated by money. Or I have a friend who won't go in a church because when he sees a spire of a church, all he can think of is the desire for money, which obviously to us as Christians it's not true, but to the outside world they see that quite often. And so again, a kingdom that is dedicated to service would be the greatest way, the best way to invite people into our belief system as Christ's followers. Secondly, this is in 1910. Pilate said to Jesus, "Do you not know that I have power to crucify you and power to release you?" We could have predicted that when Jesus heard this word power or authority, he would have jumped at the chance to tell Pilate, who seems to be listening with an intensity, "You don't understand authority, sir." In other words, outside this room, people think that you're the king and I'm the subject. It's just the opposite. I'm the king, you're the subject, and that's why Jesus says, "There is no power that you have at all against me unless it had been given to you from above." And just so we're clear here, in other words, Jesus is saying, I'm the king, you are the subject, just so you know. Well, it's interesting that several times, about 6 by my count, Pilate tries to exonerate Jesus. He'll come out in front of the crowd several times saying, "I find no fault in him." He wants to set him free, and the record thus seems to imply or present Pilate as being willing, if not wanting, to let Jesus go free. The problem is he gives Jesus to the wishes of the crowd, and so it doesn't do any good. His desire to see him exonerated still ends up with him being flogged, which is terrible enough, but then also crucified. Later tradition developed, and this is well after the biblical tradition or the biblical writings, that the tradition developed that Pilate repented. In fact, today, St. Pontius Pilate Day is celebrated by the Coptic Church, that's the state church of Ethiopia, and the Abyssinian Orthodox Church every June 25th. As for the final events in the story of Jesus' death and burial, we read this in 1925 and following. "Now there stood by the cross of Jesus his mother, his mother's sister, she seems to be named Mary as well, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. So 3 women named Mary. When Jesus therefore saw his mother and the follower whom he loved, remember, I think that's Lazarus from just the straightforward reading of the text. When he saw the follower whom he loved standing by, and remember, all the disciples fled. So this is consistent with thinking that the disciple that Jesus loved is not one of the 12, because it says in Matthew 26 that all the disciples fled the scene of the cross. When he saw the follower whom he loved standing by, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to this disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that time, that disciple took her to his own home. So my understanding would be that Mary, the mother of Jesus, went to live with Lazarus and Mary and Martha, and or this would be in Bethany, just outside of Jerusalem. And that makes sense because at the beginning of the book of Acts, 40 days after Jesus' resurrection, Mary is still in Judea, in Jerusalem, and she's part of the Acts 1 narrative. And then secondly, it's Joseph of Arimathea. He's a member of the Sanhedrin, interestingly. He's a private disciple of Jesus. And Nicodemus, remember him from John 3. Seems to be a convert. So 2 men who are quiet followers of Jesus. Again, not the disciples. They have run away. But 2 men are those who take Jesus off the cross and put his body in a tomb that has never been used. It doesn't have to be near the scene of the crucifixion. Tradition has it very near. We're not sure where exactly it is, of course. And so he's put in the tomb by 6 p.m. or sundown Saturday night. Okay? So any hours before 6 p.m., let's say 1 to 2 hours before this, that means this is day 1. Day number 2 will be Saturday, all day Saturday. And then any time, here's the point, any time after Saturday sundown will count as the 3rd day in the tomb. Jesus has promised that something will happen after 3 days in the tomb.